me. Okay. So first wanted to thank y'all for having us. We are always excited to talk about storytelling and honestly just working differently as Black millennial women, as Black women. We know that the work environment is usually pretty hostile to us. So as we are creating our own spaces, we look to support people who are trying to do it differently. So for today's masterclass, it is all about finding your authentic voice. And so we'll be going through some case studies of clients that we've worked with and how we've helped them to find their voice and to show that in the different forms like branding and communications, and also to share how we've really worked to iterate on finding our unique voice in this space. So with that, again, just to let you know how we're planning to spend our time, we will get into a little bit of an introduction, and then discuss some specific case studies. We really specialize in working with Black women leaders who are either over organizations or small businesses, because we know that we're often the ones out here doing the work and often not the ones telling our story. So today we'll go into that. We'll also talk about our journey to being a cooperative, finding our own authentic voice, what working differently means to us, how we can, kind of tools to support y'all in working differently, and then some next steps for us in staying connected. So a little bit about us. We are a Black woman-run and staffed creative consulting cooperative, and we specialize in design thinking, brand and narrative building, and high-impact activations. And so with that, we consider ourselves designers. It took us a while to really see ourselves as designers, but that's what we're doing. We are always thinking of problem solving through solutions, or problem solving through complex problems that are impacting our community. We are thinking about how to leverage our resources. We are always thinking about how we can best serve our target population. And so that is all about design. And too often Black women are not really seen as design thinkers or designers, when that's really so much of what we do. And we really do believe in bringing this abundance mindset and a practice that is really rooted in creativity to all of our work. And we support people all the way through initial ideation through implementation. And so for me, for those who don't know me, I am Paige Woods. I go between Atlanta and Detroit. And my focus within the consultancy is really about narrative building, supporting with storytelling, copy editing, strategy, and then I'm also a researcher. So some of the work that we're often asked to do is about how do we convey research to a broader audience and make it relatable. And I do that work just introducing one of our fellow spoons who's not on today, Jasmine. She and I work closely when it comes to a lot of our copy editing and research design work. Jasmine's based here in Atlanta, and she's an amazing organizer. She works with community movement builders. And if you haven't heard of the work that they're doing when it comes to Atlanta, would definitely encourage everyone to tap in. But with that, I will pass it over to Autumn.
Hi, everyone. My name is Autumn Franklin. I am one of the designers here at Spoons. So I mostly focus on branding, supporting with brand strategy, graphic design, illustration, and I also am a UI and UX designer, so I support with our web design and our web development. And I have a counterpart, Mia Hockaday, who's not going to be here with us today, but she's another one of our designers, and we work really collaboratively to help people with their brand visuals and brand experiences, and translating those things into how they present visually on different mediums, whether that's socials or their website, and just kind of all those different touch points and making sure that things are consistent across the board. And LaJoy's not with us yet, right?
No, I'm on.
Oh, hi.
Yes. Afternoon, everyone. I'm LaJoy. I'm also one of the spoons. I know it feels like there's many of us, but it's myself and Andrea that I'll be introducing. And we really make up the creative and original content side, as well as marketing for Spoons. So for us, it's really about how can we be in a very ironic way, how can we be authentic to our story and really push ourselves forward when it comes to storytelling as a kind of full service creative agency. And Andrea is not with us, but she also helps a lot with graphics and being very much helping with our like creative direction. Let me go to the next slide now. So overall, the Spoons, as I mentioned, we are a full service creative agency, but some of the areas that we truly specialize in are like brand strategy, digital marketing, a lot of UX design, web design. We've been very heavy on photography, videography, like copywriting and editing. We, as Paige mentioned earlier, have a good amount of researchers on the team that have done really awesome work when it comes to kind of digging through data and making sense of those things in a very concise way that can also ultimately be helpful in creating a blueprint for actions for a lot of organizations. Outside of what you see here, we also have access to our network of consultants. So anything that we kind of don't necessarily specialize in or would anticipate needing support in, we do have a consultant network that we typically reach out to that handles things outside of this kind of like bucket of items. And yeah, so for this kind of masterclass, what we really wanted to talk about, as we mentioned in our title, it's about finding your authentic voice. We really wanted to take a moment to share with you how we've done that with different clients and share with you our case studies, because we know finding our authentic voice can mean a lot of different things, right? And sometimes clients come to us with a very strong knowledge of like, this is my voice. I just don't know how to convey that to my audience. So we help them figure out a really concise and engaging way to make sure that when people interact with them, when they leave, it's like, oh, I know what those people are about. I know what their mission is, and I ultimately know what their goals are. And sometimes we do have clients that come to us and say, I have no idea what my story is, what my voice is, how to convey that. And we've also worked with clients like that to help kind of start from the ground up and say, okay, if these are the things that are important to you, how do we package that in a very, like I mentioned, concise way that your audience can ingest and leave having interacted with you saying, okay, I fully understand what this organization or these people are about. And it's done in a very engaging and creative way that I think for us, what makes us slightly unique is that we're able to build a very nuanced story for people. Being Black women and being a full agency of Black women, we uniquely understand that there are certain parts of you and certain parts of your story that cannot be lost in translation. And it's important as we work with different clients, and what we'll show you through the case studies is that building your authentic voice takes time, but it is important, and it's ultimately very useful in making sure that you're aligned with your own mission, and that, as I mentioned before, clients are able to walk away from you saying, I know exactly what these people are about. And I will turn this over to Autumn and Paige to kind of talk through one of our first case studies, which was the Chicago African Americans in Philanthropy organization.
Yes. So for CAPE, we were really tasked with helping them to rethink their voice and to kind of reframe their voice. So they had historically been an organization led by older members of the philanthropic community. And they were looking to attract younger funders and younger philanthropists into their space. They also were just looking to really re-engage with some of their programming in the midst of like COVID and what that meant, and the programming that they had built out and found to be successful. So with that, for us, when it comes to finding your authentic voice, like LaJoy said, oftentimes people will come in with an understanding of, how they've historically talked about their work. But sometimes, especially as we take them through our process of like interviews and focus groups, we find that they aren't giving themselves enough credit, especially for organizations that are led by Black women. It's oftentimes not thinking about the ways in which they have transformed, their participants' experiences, the way they've raised money, the way they've, structured their internal organization to be more reflective of their values. And so for us, we take our clients on an iterative journey that includes really doing a deep dive into their work, looking at how they've talked about their work before, understanding their vision and for the future. So what's coming down the pipeline, so that you never want to drop something on your audience that just feels out of like kind of left field. It's really important to like introduce them to like new branding ideas and new narrative elements and new programmatic elements in a way that kind of makes sense and is cohesive with your larger brand identity. And so with that included us taking the client through a process of brainstorming around their key programming, really understanding what was the impact that they wanted to have and how we can deepen that. And then we worked on translating all of that into their visual identity. And so that included creating the brand guide and graphic assets, and then really redesigning their website. And so with that, I will pass it over to Autumn to talk about that process.
Yeah. So we went through an iterative process of translating kind of all of those principles about their brand and all those different key elements and values about their brand voice and their messaging to be cohesive with their visual identity. Paige, you can go to the next slide, or if you want me to share my screen, I can. These are just some snippets of the visual elements that came out of that project and that process. We wanted things to be vibrant and colorful and lively, but still have like kind of a seriousness in the tone. And that came through in the color choices and the font choices. A very like elegant font was chosen here. The branding, the logo image was reconsidered. It used to be, I can't remember what it used to look like, but I think it used to be a sort of skyline of Chicago, but was a much more antiquated look and feel. So we kept that through line of like making this true to Chicago and keeping that visual representation of the city in the branding, but updating it to kind of a modern look and feel and something that looked like really optimistic as well. So that came through in the branding. And Paige, I don't know if you're able to click on the link I put in the speaker notes. It'd be cool to like flip through the brand guide really quickly and maybe even the book website.
Yeah, I think I just have to come out of this real quick.
Okay, I can share whichever.
Or actually, would it be easier for you to share it?
Well, I can't hear you anymore.
Can you hear me?
Nope, that's me.
Can you hear me okay if I talk this close?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Sorry, I might have a really loud fan on my computer, so it doesn't, it gets pretty loud, but do you want to share me?
You can share. I'll stop sharing for a moment.
I'll just show you quickly. The brand guide that came from this. So we can do all of this work, and you can do lots of work to figure out, how you want to tell your story, but ensuring that you and come up with really great ideas for those things. But the documentation of that is also really important so that it's something that you can maintain and execute throughout all of your different assets. So a brand guide, a style guide, like some sort of design system for your brand is very important to create and maintain so that it's easy for you to hold yourself accountable in how you're implementing your brand and telling your story, and to be able to relay that over to other people. Say you have your brand identity and you send all your logos to a contractor who you have doing something for you for your website. It's important to be able to translate all of the other elements, the backstory, like how you want your voice to be portrayed, like what types of imagery and things you want to use. So a brand guide is something that allows you to be able to easily do that, to have it internally for yourself, and to be able to communicate to other people how you want them to implement your brand, how you want them to represent you on your behalf. So this is an example of what we did for CAPE. It mostly focuses on visuals, but you can also implement, like I said, things like voice, things like how to implement the brand on the web and all of those different things. So because Mia developed the branding for this and drove it home on there, and I created the website. So we went through a process of creating wireframes for the website using the existing and finished branding, and review those with the client, like put in sample copy and things to make sure that things looked good before we went to development and making this an actual real and live site. And as you can see, everything that you've seen for CAPE across all of the slides and visuals that we've shown you feel consistent. They feel the same. They feel familiar, like you know that we're still talking about the same project because everything kind of looks and feels the same and the language is the same. So this was a really fun process working with them and seeing this come through fruition.
Awesome. I can hop back on here as we talk about our next case study, the Guild. So really for this, how Autumn just really went through and kind of talked to you about the process of taking your story and manifesting that visually. For the Guild, it was a little different. We were helping them because they were one of those clients that understood what their voice was and what their story was. They were having a hard time communicating that successfully to their audience and also defining their audience a little bit because they weren't exactly sure the best way to convey. So what we really did for them was take a lot of their language and make it concise and easy to digest so that when someone visited their website originally, it was just tons of information in technical terms. So I think also it helps to know that the Guild is a local organization in Atlanta that's really a real estate cooperative. So their goal is to buy community property to keep it within the legacy residents and help prevent kind of gentrification, as well as kind of like block overtakes. So really what they do is they buy these community places and they then reach out to the actual community that the like physical location is located in. And they say, hey, here's an opportunity for you all collectively to own this thing by buying into it based on shares. And for a lot of the legacy residents that they're reaching out to, they're looking at people that have been living there for like 3 decades, right? They have seen the change. They're a little bit hesitant to engage with that change that's happening in their communities, because a lot of times, specifically in Atlanta, when it comes to gentrification, it very much is this tension of communities that have been there for like hundreds of years versus these new developers coming in and saying, hey, we should turn every block into a coffee shop. So it was really unique for them to be able to reach that particular audience, because a lot of times that audience is not on socials exactly. Just the typical methods that you would think of to reach them weren't there. So what we'd help them do is first make sure that the story that they were telling, the voice that they had was, like I said, concise and easy to digest. And then we help make sure that that story got to the right people through channels that they would typically engage with information. Some of that was having a very strong strategic marketing plan, which is where they would meet some of the younger demographic that they were looking for. And the typical channels of like Instagram, having a plan for how they reached out to them on LinkedIn when it came to like community partnerships. And then particularly what I enjoyed about this project is I think a lot of times when people think about story, they either think about visuals or like language, right? Copy, that type of thing. But a lot of times people don't realize you can take your story, package it, and make it interactive. So with them, what we offered them was different ways that they could engage with the audience in person. So that is taking the way they wanted to reach people, taking the story that they want them to know and say, hey, come visit us here and learn about these things through this activation. So for them, that was having a pop-up at the location that they were hoping people would buy into. So by being able to say, hey, this is the goals that we have, this is the story we're telling you about this property, come learn about it, but also buy into it in person. So that was what was really fun about the Guild. And they were a great client in the fact that I said, you know, they really knew what their story was. But I think one of the great things too, and I encourage you all to keep in mind, like I said, is making sure that you understand your story is not limited to paper. It's not limited to words. So being able to translate that, if it comes to it, in activations, in person, in tangible ways that your audience can interact is also very important. And another fun feature that we offered for the Guild was the ability to, as I mentioned, they have legacy residents. So hearken on that nostalgia. We recommended that what they do is pull up a picture of the property that they wanted people to invest in whatever year, like maybe some of the residents had first moved to the neighborhood. So let's say we were looking at 1966 is where a lot of the people were flocking to that area. You would take that picture, put it on the postcard, mail that out. And on the backside, you would have an image of what they ultimately wanted the space to be, which was like a community multi-use space. And that was a really great way to get people to buy into their story automatically, because it was now like, okay, you've already like tapped into a memory for me. Now you're also telling me what this could be in the future. And the middle ground is really where the story lies. And that's where we help them make that connection with their audience. In the next slide, you can see part of what I was mentioning when it came to really having that social media strategy laid out, because you also want to make sure you're covering all your grounds. And I think something that Autumn mentioned that's very important too is making sure you're consistent. So a lot of times we encourage people to cross-post and make sure that the way they're describing things, especially when it came to the Guild, around a lot of the technical terms they have, making sure that they're defining any places they talked about their story, like what does this mean to us, right? Because this word could mean something in different uses in different industries, but part of defining your authentic voice is making sure that your audience also knows what these words mean to you and making sure that's consistent across platforms.
And so, okay, sorry. Sound stuff has been interesting on our laptops today. But our next case study is for the Illinois Black Advocacy Initiative. And so this is a really good example of an organization that's newly founded and that is really looking to both identify its voice and also define its programming and impact strategy. And so that's something that we also we offer uniquely, is that a lot of us have worked in the spaces of community development, film, policy, nonprofits, the startup space, and the kind of the overall production space. And so like with that, we bring that knowledge into our space, and we know that a lot of our clients are also bringing a multitude of experiences into their work. And with that, we want to always ensure that we're like capturing that. So with IBAI, they're newly founded. They are a statewide advocacy organization in Illinois, which is seeking to uplift a Black policy agenda and also provide research and kind of this communications funnel for the organizations that are part of their network. And so with that, that has looked like us working is closely with their founder. I think they represent a lot of organizations that are very small. And so working with their founder to build out their narrative pillars, really define their metrics of success, and to really go with her on that process that has been really iterative with their board, their steering committee, their table partners. Like, we know that as a founder, you're having to like pull together all of this, and our work is to really support in helping you tell the story. So with that, pulling those pieces together, and then something that I think that is just something that organizations should think about on an ongoing basis is taking a step out of the weeds of the work and really looking to see like, what are your big programmatic pillars? What does your impact look like? What is the future vision? And then start to pull out the themes that are consistent across those, because that's really what's going to help you establish a strong foundational brand or to make revisions to your current brand. So if you're finding that, you know, you've had a really big impact in one region, but now you're scaling, and you're also looking to say that, like, you know, the future for this year is to scale to this number of cities, and you have this new programming. I think LaJoy did a really great job of talking about, like, so much of your audience will connect with your history and that nostalgia. So as long as you're willing to take them on the journey and to like bring out those narrative elements that, you know, allow you to have that flexibility, then your audience will usually adapt as your branding adapts, because I know sometimes, we get locked into what we've done historically and we feel like we can't shift it, but it really is just about telling the story and getting people used to that shift. And so as we define those narrative pillars for IBAI, as we started to understand how they wanted to measure success, that was important for us as we started to work on building out their brand and their website. And even now they are in the process of, just kind of, they've had an uptick in, I guess, public awareness. And so that has shifted some priorities as well. So we're still ongoing and making their website changes. We help them with establishing their social media channels. And they also have had, as they're a research body, as they're growing in that space, they put out a policy anthology, working with partners across the state to uplift a Black policy agenda for the state of Illinois. And that has taken off, as well as their involvement in a recent study by Northwestern that highlighted just the concerns that Black constituents have in the upcoming mayoral race. And so all of that's to say is that we've been helping them as they both are getting their footing and growing in their notoriety pretty quickly. And so we've been supporting them with establishing this narrative framework, developing it visually, and then supporting them in the space of both research and public relations support. So it's a combination of things there, but we know that they are also figuring out exactly how they want to do what they do. And so we're kind of on the ride with them. And with that, I'll pass it over to Autumn to give some insights, Autumn and LaJoy, to give some insights on their visual identity and also kind of the developing their voice on socials.
Yeah, so again, our design team worked on, Mia and I worked on the visuals for this and kind of rethinking the IBAI brand. As we might have mentioned, it was a pretty new organization. So starting with some basic kind of templates that were there for things and kind of re-examining that and kind of being playful and again vibrant with the colors. This organization has a very similar underlying tone as CAPE, as we just showed you, which is why I think this visual kind of the visuals for this look very similar to CAPE, and making sure that they still feel colorful, that they still feel Black and familiar and native. And so the color palette for this really came through really nicely with that. And the shot in the middle is a screenshot of a light kind of reskin that we did for the website. So we were able to kind of pivot during this project to kind of expedite some things so that we could make sure that the visual identity for IBAI was going to be familiar for people as we pushed out this communication and started this initiative. Even though we knew we still want to make some additional enhancements to the website, we were able to kind of quickly go in there and switch over their brand so that it at least looks and feels like the new IBAI. And even when we make future enhancements, it'll still look and feel like IBAI, but just be kind of a better user experience. And so we've created a brand guide for this the same way that we did for CAPE. And that was able to translate into the social templates that are showing here, so that the branding is consistent through all of the different communications. LaJoy, did you have anything to add?
I know on that, I was just going to take the note of when it comes to, and I think we've all kind of touched on this a little bit, the consistency around the language that you use. So once you've kind of defined your voice, making sure that that voice is always kind of the lens or the filter that you talk to people through in your audience. And when we say audience, it's more than just the people you're trying to reach or sell something to. It's also your community partners, right? It's people that potentially could be your partners. So making sure that you have that consistently so people know how to engage with you and kind of how to describe you. But I will also say when it came to IBAI, what was really interesting in how we approached language was that, and it's kind of fun because Patrice, the person that we typically work with IBAI, wasn't afraid to be very like direct in language. So I think sometimes people get a little shy when it comes to talking about things that may skew people or kind of divide people when it comes to topics, but we blatantly were able to use across all of our platforms. Like, this is a Black agenda that we're talking about. And I think we would also encourage you, when you're finding your voice, to define early what type of language you will and will not be comfortable using, because later on, as Paige was talking about, your audience will adapt with you when it comes to branding and kind of changing how you tell your story, but sometimes you can lose them when your tone changes. So being able to be strong in that and be confident early on in your story is really good. Not saying that there's not room for like adapting, but making sure that you have a really strong footing in how you talk about the work you're doing.
Yes. And so with that, I think that's a great little transition into kind of sharing our journey and how we came into this space. Because like LaJoy said, specificity can really be like your niche. Like, sometimes we're afraid because we're afraid of losing out on people who don't fit within our very specific market. But then oftentimes, at least in the work that we do, and like focusing on Black women, Black girls, Black non-binary people, we fall into a space where, like, if we're not speaking directly to our audience, we're missing our audience. Our audience are the people who want to know this is a space for them. They want to know, they value our identities. Like, we work with clients who value that, who are coming to us because we hold this like a plethora of perspectives and identities. And they value that, and they value our background in that. And so the way Spoons began, there's a little small video we'll show on the next slide with an overview of us, but we began as just a community of Black women, Black femmes, Black non-binary people, not too long after graduating college, just trying to figure life out on a Facebook group and starting to grow that into like lifestyle content, understanding, like uplifting each other's like brands and hustles. It was literally this collective moment of trying to figure our lives out, because everyone told us, you go to school, you do that, but there wasn't a lot at the time really telling us like how to, really create the life that we ultimately wanted and the type of jobs and careers that we wanted. And what we were finding in the space was that there were a lot of folks who were consulting. There were a lot of people who were, taking on projects and trying to like manifest the life they wanted, even if they weren't able to do their full 9 to 5 in that space. And so we started to pull together a network of consultants and start to source projects for them and for ourselves. We started to just supporting them in like, what was it like to go through the process? Because we were getting played too often, and we were like, okay, we know that others are also experiencing some stress as being like freelancers as well. And so from there, we started noticing that we just worked well together. A lot of the consultants, we would find ourselves working on the same project. And so we began the journey of becoming a cooperative, because we had already been working cooperatively. And so we worked with that and created the Spoons Consultancy Cooperative. So we're a worker-owned cooperative. We have 6 co-owners, which we all introduced earlier, but we still have this ecosystem and network of consultants. And so when there are projects that come to us that we are not able to take on, we pass it on to them. If a project that we are staffing out needs a skill set that we don't have, we go to them first. And we are continuing to kind of figure out the space and the types of work that gives us joy, because we ultimately want to ground our work in it being joyful and fun and creative. So here is the little overview. And hopefully let me make sure this is going to share sound as well. Let me know if this works.
5 words I would use to describe the Spoons Consultancy are creative, strategic, diligent, smart, and helpful.
I think the first word that comes up is alignment.
So Spoon started in 2017?
Yeah, 2017, yeah.
And originally it was gonna be a blog where we and a couple of our friends like posted about our post-college lives. We're all doing different things. You were in grad school abroad.
Yeah.
I was in New York, living with a lot of people. So we thought, look at all these Black women doing different things. Like, it would be interesting for us to document this experience.
It was understanding too that a lot of times for Black millennial women, and now I think even so for the generation below us, is not a lot of like culturally responsive and like progressive ways of like getting you to that next step after you're finished with undergrad. Like, we do things differently, we work differently, we live differently nowadays. And so a lot of things just weren't hitting.
The huge value of having the Spoons team as thought partners has been having people working on my brand, so they really have a unique understanding of what's appealing to my audience.
For clients from ideation through project implementation. So we work with a lot of brands that are just getting started. It might be one or two people with an idea, and we help kind of flesh out that back end business development strategy so that by the time they're ready to build their website, it's completely targeted to what it is that they actually want to do beyond just kind of the initial concept that they may have come to us with.
Pink Cornrows, which is a really great women-led, womanist-focused equity firm. We were able to work with them on a campaign called And Still I Vote, which was an influencer-led digital campaign focused on really raising awareness around voter suppression, working with influencers to highlight that. And we were like the communication support team for that project. So supporting with graphic design, video production, copy, social media management, digital strategy.
We love making profits, but that is not the sole intent or focus of our company. And so we are actually in the process right now of transitioning part of our work into a co-op where some of the key consultants that have been with us from day one are actually sharing in the equity of the entire company.
Because Jasmine and I have both had like a range of experiences when it comes to consulting, some greater than others. And we started to see that if there was someone there to advocate for us, to make sure we were paid on time, to make sure that, our scope of work was respected, and to really help to sort through some of the details that can be tedious and a bit overwhelming, how helpful that could be. So yeah, that video is maybe a couple years old at this point, but it's a snapshot. So don't look at this contact information, or some of it you can, but
Some of it's right.
some of it's updated. Okay. Oop. No, there we go.
Awesome. Yeah, I haven't seen that in a really long time. It's really nice seeing that. And just what is cool for me to hear from that is that video is from a couple of years ago, but we still talk about ourselves almost the exact same way as we have since the beginning. And that was without even having done a ton of internal brand exploration amongst ourselves. I think that we continue to talk about ourselves the same way because we all came together because we believe in the same things. And one of the things one of our clients had pointed out about us was alignment and kind of being on the same page. And we're in constant communication with each other and staying on the same page. And because we talk so much and we're in alignment with what we believe in and what we value, there is that consistency there. Like there's this constant kind of reinforcement of those values and that voice and that tone and all of those things. So at any given time, you could get an email from our main email address, and it could be from any of us, but it's gonna feel like you're talking to Spoons, whether it's any of the six of us. So it's just cool to hear that after a bit of time, and to hear that it doesn't sound very different than how we've been talking. And this is a prompt, I guess, for us to talk about what working differently means to us. And we recently wrote a book about what working differently means for us and what it means for Black millennial women. And I think that some of the things that we've highlighted and that Paige has talked about in how Spoons even got started, in the way that we work with each other and the way that we work with our clients is very different than how you might hear other creative agencies working. Even the way that we define ourselves as an agency is different, and all of the different kind of areas that we tap into, how we engage with our clients, how we engage with our workforce, are different. The fact that we're a cooperative, and like Jasmine said in the video, like not focused on profit, like focused on impact, both for the people that we are providing services to, but also on impacting the lives of us and the people who are a part of our cooperative and who are working with the cooperative, and making sure that like the experience of working with Spoons is different. Like work needs to get shipped. And in order for that to happen, the work needs to get done. Some things might be a little bit stressful, but not stressful to the point of, distress. And being able to facilitate a culture that is supportive of mental health and well-being and rest, reasonable timelines, being paid for what you're worth, having fulfilling and reinforcing engagements with clients, not reducing ourselves to, like lowly service providers that just do whatever our clients need and are available to them at any time, setting boundaries and parameters around how we work with people and how people work with us. Saying no to work is a way that we work differently. We don't work with everybody that comes our way because the vibes might not be there, or we might have had a past experience that didn't sit so well, or we might have heard about, a testimonial from someone else who had worked with them that the vibes weren't right. So making sure we do kind of an auditing process when we're deciding who we want to work with, and making sure that values are aligned, that we believe in the work that they're doing, that they value us and want to pay us for the work and the value that they're getting out of us. So those are some of the things that come to mind when I think about us working differently, and kind of just like challenging like the standard American work culture, and still being able to produce good products and outputs, without that having to look like how everybody else does it, without that having to be a stressful situation. And yeah, those are sort of some of the things that come to me. Do you guys want to add anything to that? Cool.
No, that sounded very comprehensive.
Cool. So you can hear more about our ideas and philosophies on working differently if you read our book. That's available on our website. It'll take you to our store, which has our book and some really yummy smelling candles that you can order. Jasmine and Paige are kind of the pioneers of Spoons, and they took time to really put love and effort into writing kind of about our journey, where we've been, how things are going now, the things that we've learned, and kind of where we plan to go as a cooperative. Other ways you can learn: we are releasing a series of masterclasses, and we'll continue to record and host them and post them to a platform where they can be watched. So we're going to send you a link where you can sign up to join the wait list to hear about more of our masterclasses that'll be coming. And then you can also book a consultation with us. And, if you've got a story that you want to tell, if you know of someone who needs branding or storytelling support, book a consult with us. We'd love to hear more about what your needs are and discover how we could possibly work together in helping you or folks that kind of find their voice and execute on that and make that a reality. So these are kind of 3 different touch points and ways that you can start working differently and start engaging with us as a cooperative.
Yes. So the whole kind of masterclass that we've shared with you and all the examples that we shared have really been grounded in finding your authentic voice, right? And so Autumn and Paige just got done kind of talking about our journey to doing so. And in that, we found that doing the work of, and it is work. So we won't tell you that it's super easy to find your voice, right? But in doing the work of finding our own voice, we've also found really our ministry and kind of our calling and what we want to do. So as we move into that, for us, what's next for Spoons really is kind of tapping into what Autumn mentioned before, as far as being able to offer things like master classes, being able to offer a lot of our consultants or just a network in general of Black women, particularly access to things that we just weren't offered when it comes to resources. So contracts, making sure that you understand what your scope should look like, being able to offer people kind of transparency when it comes to pricing, being able to say, hey, this is typically what you charge for this type of work for this many years in the industry. So just making sure that we're offering the resources that we wish we had. That's really one of the main things. And that kind of comes through our When We Bloom arm, which is more so about getting back to offering to our community. Because as Paige mentioned, we did start off as a digital community, and now we're still getting back to that like footing of making sure that we're extending just like networking opportunities for the network that we're in and that we want to build. Some of the other things that we are definitely looking forward to on the horizon really comes in how we're shaping and positioning ourselves. So we really love narrative work. And as I mentioned earlier, narrative work is not just visual. It's not just copy. Sometimes that's activations, that's thinking about experiences. And that's really where we're trying to move into. So being that full creative digital agency, doing a lot more activations, connecting and creating with a lot more Black creatives. Is just really, really what we're looking forward to. And I would also say for us, we already have kind of some original productions in the work that we're trying to ground ourselves into and also spotlight other Black creatives with. So I think that's always something that will be our goal, and what we are grounded in is making sure that we are both uplifting and bringing along other Black creatives with us, especially in the storytelling and narrative space. Because we found in a lot of these, with a lot of the clients that we work with and a lot of like new spaces that we enter, we realize there's no one that looks like us that are shaping the stories, but the stories are about us. So it's making sure that we are getting our footing in there, opening that door, and then being like, hey, everyone, this is the door we need to be going through, and making it easier. So really that's kind of what's on the horizon for Spoons. And as Autumn mentioned, that will be something you'll be able to kind of see and connect with in our follow-up.
Yes. So with that, we know we are coming up on time. So wanted to give space if y'all had any questions, anything that we know we talked a lot. So definitely let us know if we need to go back to another slide or if anything came up for you. Yeah, as well. And then no pressure too, if anything comes up later, you have our contact information.
Well, I want to say thank you. I appreciate our network being able to learn all the gifts and talents of our network. So thank you for sharing your gifts and talents today. I'm sure that as leaders, we can see how we can enhance our authentic voice. I learned a few things today. I hope that others did too. I'm just happy that, we were able to showcase Spoons and all of the great work that you all are doing. So congratulations on the success and the upcoming success that you all will have. I want to know, and I'm just randomly, Spoons, why?
I'm learning.
What was the, did you come up with that page? Was that like?
I did. It's always funny because people always wonder about the name. The name, so it came from, the name of the community was called Life of a Single Spoon. And it came from you could say this is when I was really trying to find myself. And I was about to go abroad. So I just used to joke with friends, like, I'm just this single spoon out here bumping around, trying to figure my life out. And then it became like an inside joke of just the life of a single spoon. And it always catches people's, at this point, it always catches people's ear. And so we've stuck with it. But yeah, that's where Spoons ultimately comes from, and all of our references to cutlery as well are connected to that.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody for joining us in this hour. Want to let you know that next month we will have another Sage Circle. It will be on boards and Black women on boards. Our voices, our power, our influence on boards. So please join us. Please continue to stay engaged with our network as we want to stay engaged with you. So thank you so much for taking up the space. I see one little finger up. So is that a question? Go ahead.
Yes, right. I was gonna wait. Hey, everybody. I was looking on the web page just now, and I see 3 packages that you have available: the day ones, the booked and busy, and also the village. And it may also benefit to book a consultation, because I'm not really sure exactly where I fit here, but I'm gonna follow up with you all really soon. Really excited for some of the information that you shared on today, because it kind of also gives me guidance in the direction that I'm headed to currently. So thanks everyone for hosting it. And I'm glad you were able to join us.
Thank you. I see another question, Cassandra.
Hi, thank you so much for this. I recently went to like a leadership development conference over in Costa Rica, and so I was assigned a team of folks to help me out as far as my nonprofit organization, all about the balance. However, that team did not look like any of us. And so I even had have one person that's helping. She's doing some amazing work, don't get me wrong, and I appreciate it as far as building my website. But now that I'm seeing what you all do, I'm like, whoa, now this definitely seems to be more like what we would like to see, you know, on our website. So I will definitely be in touch with you all. We're a small, very small nonprofit organization. So we don't have a lot of funds to go towards this. And I'm grateful. I'm forever grateful, because this person is doing it for free. But sometimes, I guess what they say is, you know, you get what you pay for. So we're not paying for this. But I just looking at what you presented here today, I'm excited, I'm inspired, and I will definitely be in touch with you all. Thank you so much.
Oh, that's great to hear. And also, something that we are going to be piloting later this spring is really for those who, like, let's say you're working with another like provider or like vendor, but you need them to have a clear direction as to what you want. But like maybe it's not within like a budget where we could take on the full project. It's working with you to scope that out so that you can give them this and say like, hey, this is what you need to do. Because we know that oftentimes when you are getting a free service, people think they can give you whatever, and we all deserve more than that. So
Thank you. Trish, I see your hand.
Hi, everyone. I'm Trish Brown. My pronouns are she, her. And I'm here in Tallahassee, Florida. And I'm an activist. I'm a Black Lives Matter leader here in our community. And I don't know. And I know that all eyes have been on Florida as far as like the struggle that we're like fighting against with the government and the governor and these legislators attacking Black and brown, you know, people and trying to oppress us. And I just wanted to say that to be in this space, I want to tell you how much I appreciate this, because the thing is that you reset me in a way that makes me affirmed, and knowing that we're going in the right direction and we're getting to that liberation that we all deserve, the dignity that we all deserve, the prosperity that we all deserve, and how much of it, you know, as far as in this journey, it's been a struggle. In my community, I fight about how grassroots organizations and community organizations that are out here trying to provide resources and opportunities and tools, you know, to marginalized and disenfranchised communities, we're not lifted up enough, and we're not sustained in it. And money's being, as far as like budgets and stuff, and I could go on and I want to do that with you, but it's being dumped into corporations and into politicians and influencers' hands, and not really into poverty impacted marginalized communities of people who want change. This is a jewel as far as like I'm concerned to have, and I appreciate the uplifting and the empowerment, because that's so what we desperately need. I definitely want to like connect with all of you. I know that like I'm about civic education, teaching the community about policy, building and ordinances and, ballot initiatives and such, but also about fighting against the criminal injustice issues that we have in our communities. But my thing is that we don't have enough people like you to be surrounded with, as far as like to like help us with our voice, as far as like conveying the message and the content, as far as like in regards to uplifting, empowering, and continuing to unite as community. So this is community for me, and I just want to say thank you, and I love you all. And it's always these Black queens and that like paving the way. This is what it's about. We are resilient, and we are so empowered, and we're so strong. To me, it's not Black magic. It's everything that we've endured that inspires us to like continue to keep, staying in the fight until we get the dignity and the prosperity and the and all the things that we deserve in this lifetime. So I just want to say thank you.
Well, thank you. That was a lovely message, Trish. I appreciate that. I'm sure that all of the spoons appreciate it and feel the love. And that was a great way to wrap up our conversation today. Thank you so much for sharing the space. And, we look forward to staying connected. Spoons, as I say all the time with people when we connect from Southern Black Girls and Women's Consortium, we say, hey, girl, hey, but at the end we say we go together. So we go together now. So y'all can't go nowhere. We connected. Thank you for sharing this masterclass today. And I want you all to have a lovely rest of the week and rest of the month. Thank you.